See this? I haven't had a beer in 4 years. That's a long time for an alcoholic. So I figured, after 4 years, it's about time to have a drink. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've probably gone to, I don't know, maybe 4,000 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings in my life. I've probably been to a couple hundred NA meetings. Um, let's see, where do I start? And this is my actually second beer in 4 years. I just had my other beer, but it tasted so bad that I drank half of it and I threw it out, and then I'm now drinking this one. I used to go to this brewery that was a couple miles away, and they would sell 50 cents for a pitcher, and so I could basically crawl home after I got hammered there. But anyways, that's a different story. I'm not driving tonight, and I won't be. My first wife to be that I was going to marry, she got killed by a drunk driver. She was on a country road, and the drunk driver driving a pickup truck, like a Ford F1 250 or something, and she was in a Pinto, and it hit her so hard that the truck flipped end over end 7 times, and then I found she was on life support. And her mom called me up and then asked me if I should pull the plug, and I really didn't know what to say, but she didn't have any brain function or anything like that. Her name was Carolyn Heineck. She lived in Everett, Washington. So I've tried not to drink and drive, but I have had 2 DWIs. Basically, I was adopted, and then I was raised in an alcoholic drug addict family. My father was giving me diazepam or Valium far back as I can remember. When I was like 5 years old, he needed a party buddy. So he was a psychiatrist, and he had pharmacy-sized jars of like 1,000 Percodans and 1,000 Demerols and 1,000 Quaaludes and Vicodin and Percodan and Demerol and Placidril and everything. I mean, I've probably taken about at least 2,000 Quaaludes, 4 714s, and 712s in my life. Methaqualone. So I guess I'm kind of qualified to say I've probably done in my whole life, I've done a half pound of coke, which is nothing. I never liked the cocaine that much. I think it's genetics, because like I had a problem with the alcohol. Like, I've tried everything under the sun, but the alcohol I had the most trouble controlling. But since I haven't had it for 4 years, I guess it's under control. We'll see tomorrow or the day after or whatever. Grew up on a houseboat on a lake. Spent a good part of my life, threw wild parties and everything, and had every drug under the sun there for years. And that's basically about it there. Went through I went through 7 treatment centers. I never really did any jail time. Never got caught for my illegal activities, and then when I got older, I stopped doing them. But I didn't do my illegal activities really for the money. I just did it for the excitement. I mean, I had money anyways, but I just had to break the monotony. Life on the planet was just too boring. I never really could do a square job. I don't know if it was my upbringing from my dysfunctional alcoholic family that I was raised in. I mean, it was normal to party every day in the family I was raised in. Mom and Dad. Mom was basically a drunk. She was a sherry drinker daily, all the time. She had a glass of sherry and a cigarette in her hand. 24/7. She used to smoke those true cigarettes. They had the one with the charcoal filter, and theoretically that would be, yeah. And then I was a 3-pack a dayer myself. Went to a lot of wild parties in the 70s and 80s and all that stuff, and then had a couple bad accidents, a couple bad car wrecks, and then I've been in bad car wrecks where the person was drunk and then I was drunk, but they were driving. It was the only difference. And I've lived overseas, and they have a major problem with alcoholism in that country. And then the United States right now is just rampant. I mean, compared to the other country I lived in, they didn't have the drug problems like the States. But I've seen the States, the drug problems here have just gotten way out of hand. I mean, it's bad. It's destroying the country. I mean, it's a big mess here. The drug problem is. Personally, I think they should legalize drugs. The people that want drugs illegal are the ones that are making money off it. It's all a big game. It's all a big racket. We have the biggest jail system in the world, and everybody from the judge to the guy in jail to the cop to the dealer, all the way down the road, the people that are getting the payoffs or whatever, it's all just a big money game. That's all it is. And if they legalized it, from all my years of being around and what I know, basically, you get your act together and you get off the stuff or you die, So I had overdosed several times. I remember shooting dope. I was shooting dope for about 6 months, and I never did speed that much or coke. I did do some, but I was banging. I was getting a pharmaceutical Demerol out of the vial, and I was banging serious amounts. Like, God, I think I was up to like 700 milligrams of Demerol. And I think 100 milligrams would normally just put somebody in a coffin. So I was up there, and I remember sometimes I'd wake up and there'd be like a rig hanging in my arm, a syringe, and then blood, crusted on my arm. And it would be like an hour later, and I'd wake up with the syringe in my arm. So I had a couple close calls, but I just put the needle in. I put the drugs in slow, so when it would get to the overdose amount, it would knock me out. Whereas if you just take a big hit, you just freaking slam it all in there quick, and it's an OD dose, that's it, unless you go to the hospital and get Narcan. So I got lucky with that. I had about 3 overdoses where I was hospitalized in junior high school. And my closest call with drugs, other than, the people I was dealing with and the situations I was in, was I had a high-paying blue-collar job at the time, and it was in Seattle, and it was raining, and I was coming home to my apartment, flat, whatever you want to call it. And I had a linoleum floor in the kitchen, and the kitchen was the front door of my apartment. So I walk in, I got on my steel toes, and the floor is wet, and I'm probably on 5 different drugs, and I was just drunk out of my mind. I mean, I remember when I went home, I was crossing I-90, it's like 5-6 lanes, and I was like going back and forth in the lanes. I was really hammered, and the best thing that could have happened to me was I would have gotten popped by a police officer, and I would have gotten thrown in jail and gotten a DWI. In retrospect, that would have been the best thing that could happen to me. But I came home, And I walked in the door, and my feet slipped out from underneath me, and I fell back, and my head hit the back of the doorknob. If you look at my head, you can see that. And I was on the floor, and it was a thick wood door like that. So I was going in and out of coma for a week. And I was having really bizarre memories of my life and experiences I had. It was like my life was going through my mind, and I'm laying on the floor, and I can hear people going down the hall, and I'm going, help, help, help me, help me. And they can't hear me, and I'm yelling. And at the time, my leg, somehow I mangled it up so I couldn't stand, and I lost control of my right arm. And so I was trying to text. I think I tried to text my son and my ex-wife, and I mean not text, but just call. And I couldn't do that, and I was getting the numbers wrong and stuff, and so I couldn't make a call out, and then my cell phone battery went dead. And I was on the floor for 7 days with no food or water. And I'm kind of a sociable person. I mean, I usually talk to everybody around me. You know, I'm just that kind of person, and that in that way that could have saved my life, because I had a rapport with the landlord. And he was wondering, why has my car been parked in the same spot for 7 days? Normally I go to work and all that stuff. So he comes up, and he opens up the door of the apartment, and he sees me on the floor, and the first question is, can you get up? And I said, no. And right then and there, he dialed 911. And then about 10, 12 minutes later, EMTs showed up, saw a bunch of bottles of pills all over the floor, and blood from my head, all that stuff. And I was begging him for Gatorade because I was so thirsty and so dehydrated, and I went into the hospital. I'm going to have to go to two parts, but I went into the hospital, and there's this nurse in the ER, and she's jamming these IVs in my arm, and she's saying, you dumb son of a bitch, you frickin' stupid blah, 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 and all that stuff, just ranting and raving on me and everything. And then I was like in a coma for about a week and a half in the hospital.